There's a lot I wish I knew about college before going. When I was applying to schools and choosing where to go to, what I didn't think about were the behind-the-scenes success factors for school. And the biggest one that I really didn't learn about until after college was sleep. I will admit, when I was a college student, I struggled a lot with having a consistent sleep schedule, and it definitely wasn't something that I made a priority, considering especially at that time I was juggling classes and work and meeting new people. With all of those things that I was trying to get done throughout my days, there just wasn't a lot of time to sleep. And I found myself day after day after day always being tired, but never doing much about it. Since college, I've learned a lot about sleep. Not only the importance of it, but also how to sleep better. In this video, I'm going to get into 3 lessons about sleep that I wish I knew in college so that I would have slept better and that would have had ripple effects to my college experience. I will say this video and the lessons I'm sharing should be relevant for anyone who's interested in getting better sleep, but I am using that lens of my experience as a college student because I found it was one of the most important times during my life where I needed good sleep and I just didn't know it. By the way, if you're new here, this channel is focused all on sleep and rest. So if you're interested in learning more about topics like that, feel free to subscribe to stay up to date with new videos. Let's kick things off with lesson number 1, which is knowing why sleep is important for learning and memory. The way I viewed sleep in college is as a fuel for my day. Sleep was another thing, just like food, that I used to have enough energy to get through all the things that I needed to do going about my day on my college campus. It wasn't until I took a cognitive psychology class my sophomore year that I finally learned that sleep was important to memory. In fact, it's one of the most important factors, if not the most important factor, for retaining new information that was learned during the previous day. This means all of the effort I was putting in, doing homework and going to lectures, it wasn't really sinking in, and I wasn't learning as much as I could have without getting a good night's sleep and giving my brain a chance to save the information I learned the previous day and put it in long-term memory so that I could recall it during exams and in future classes. I also learned in this psychology class about the effect of sleep on decision making. It's kind of a cycle where if you have one bad night of sleep, the decisions the following day are affected and you're not making as clear-headed of decisions. So it's harder, for example, to make good decisions to get better rest that next night, and the cycle can continue without making some bigger changes. Just knowing now how important sleep is to learning, to memory, and decision making, I think that is already enough of a motivator to make some changes and give sleep a higher priority, something that I didn't do while I was in college because I just didn't know. My second lesson about sleep is to sleep consistently and to catch up on sleep the right way. What I've learned over the past few years is that it's better to keep going to bed and waking up at consistent times, ideally within a 60-minute window. So, for example, always waking up between 7 and 8 a.m. and always going to bed between 10 and 11 p.m. This consistency is important even on the weekends, and I think this is the piece that it really took me a long time to learn. When I was in college, I viewed weekends as one of the best opportunities to catch up on sleep, and I did that by sleeping in hours and hours past when I would normally have to wake up for classes. What I've now found is much more effective for catching up on sleep is to take naps. And there's 2 ways to do it. There is the 20-minute power nap that can be crucial if you're trying to really catch up and get a little bit of energy and rest, say in between classes or before you're headed to a work shift. But on weekends, when I did have time to catch up on sleep, what I wish I would have done, and what I sometimes do now, is still get up at a more consistent time in the morning, but then take a 90-minute nap later in the day. I say 90 minutes because this is the approximate time for one sleep cycle, which should give your body a lot of the rest that it's seeking. The only thing to be careful of here is to not nap too late in the day. I have been very disoriented when taking a 90-minute nap and waking up when it's already dark out. So I think as a rule of thumb, make sure if you're taking a nap that you're waking up while it's still light out. And in general, I try to take these naps before 4 p.m. just so that my body isn't too thrown off and I'm still able to go to bed at a normal time. Another consideration here is to nap right. So if you need to use blackout curtains or an eye mask, so you can block out light during the day, that can make it easier to sleep. Also, if you live with roommates or in a noisy dorm, playing white noise to drown out some of that background noise, or maybe even earplugs so it's quiet enough for you to have restful sleep. The third lesson is very obvious, but that doesn't necessarily make it easy to follow, and that lesson is to avoid what will keep you awake. You've probably heard this before, but one place to start is by looking at your caffeine consumption. So whether you decide to avoid caffeine entirely or just look at the timing of your caffeine consumption. So as a rule of thumb, for example, I try to never consume caffeine after 12 p.m. Here's one you've probably also heard mentioned: exercise. Of course, it's very important to build exercise into your days, especially as a college student. And I had plenty of peers in college who I know would go to the gym at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. just because that's the only time of the day when they had the opportunity and the time to go to the gym. Now, general advice is it's best for your sleep to exercise either early in the morning or in the late afternoon. But again, given busy schedules, especially when in college, that's not always possible. One of the biggest challenges that I had around scheduling exercise while in college was my late night club sports practices, where we didn't get field time sometimes until 8 or 9 p.m. and we're on that field for 2 hours. So I'm attending these practices, I'm practicing with my team, but what it means is I'm exercising until 10 or 11 p.m. at night, and I need to get in bed as soon as I can after that because I need to make sure that I can wake up in time for my morning classes. If you're on a team, you probably don't have control over your practice times, so these might be inevitable. The good news is you don't have to skip these practices in order to get good sleep. I've learned a few tips since then that should help. First, you have to let your body slow down and cool down after exercising late at night. As much as I find cold showers hard to handle, it can be really effective if you've worked out late at night and you're trying to get to bed because it's one way to help cool down your body. A second tip is to focus on your breathing, which can help in general when you're trying to slow down and get ready to go to sleep. But I found it's especially important when you're exercising and have a quick turnaround for when you need to go to bed. I use box breathing by focusing on the fours. So it's the 4 seconds in, hold for 4, 4 seconds exhale, hold for 4, and I repeat that for 4 minutes. So it's easy to remember, 4, 4, and 4, and that helps my body slow down and get ready for bed. An obvious but essential tip is to avoid screens after practice. So as much as possible, trying to do any homework or activities that require being on a screen before practice. So once you get done with your exercise, you are just focused on getting home and getting ready for bed and not waking your brain up even more by exposing it to light and screens. One final tip here is just get out a piece of paper and do a brain dump of all the thoughts racing around in your head. And I've found that this can sometimes be another way to clear my mind and slow down my thoughts and get ready for sleep, even when I'm switching from moving at a very fast pace to trying to slow down enough that I can fall asleep quickly. With that, those are the 3 lessons about sleep that I wish I knew while I was in college, especially that first lesson about the importance of sleep for learning. Again, these lessons can be important for anyone looking to improve their sleep, not just for college students. So I hope you learned a thing or 2 or 3. Feel free to comment down below if there's any lessons that you've learned about sleep that could be helpful for college students who might also be watching this video. Rest up, and I'll see you in the next one.